Mazda dealerships have a financial incentive to sell you every year they stock. The good ones and the ones that will drain your wallet before the first service interval. Most buyers walk onto a Mazda lot knowing the model they want, but completely unaware that 2 years of the same model can represent entirely different ownership experiences. Today we are exposing exactly which years to avoid and exactly which years to target. Stay until the end. The final entry saves you from the single most expensive Mazda mistake on the used market right now. Let us get into number 15. Number 15. Why model year matters more on a Mazda than almost any other brand. Before the specific years are named, the reason model year selection matters more on Mazda than on most mainstream brands needs to be understood. Mazda operates as a smaller manufacturer than Toyota, Honda, or Ford. When Toyota introduces a new engine across a model line, they have decades of variant testing behind the technology before it reaches production. When Mazda introduces a new engine architecture, the first production years carry the full weight of real-world validation. Early adopters of Mazda platform changes are the real-world test fleet. The problems that emerge in the first 1 to 2 years of a new platform are documented, addressed, and corrected in subsequent years. Buyers of the corrected years receive the benefit of real-world development without paying the price of being the development vehicle. This pattern has repeated across multiple Mazda platforms in multiple decades. Understanding it transforms how you evaluate any Mazda on the used market. The year is not just a number, it tells you where in the development cycle you are buying. The next entry is the specific year that introduced a problem so widespread that Mazda issued a technical service bulletin acknowledging it, and that most buyers on the used market today still do not know to check for. Number 14. The 2014 Mazda 3. The 2014 Mazda 3 represented the first year of the third-generation platform. New exterior design, new interior layout, new infotainment system, and a first-year infotainment implementation that produced owner frustration at a rate Mazda's own technical service bulletin history documents extensively. The hardware that ran this software in the first year was undersized for the demands the software placed on it. The processor speed that felt adequate during development testing became a liability in real-world use as owners began using every feature simultaneously. System freezes during navigation use became a documented pattern within months of the vehicle reaching owners. Random reboots of the infotainment system during driving were reported at a rate significantly higher than Mazda's quality targets. The rotary controller that was the primary input device for the system developed connectivity issues between the controller electronics and the system processor on early production units. Mazda issued multiple software updates attempting to address these issues through the 2014 and 2015 model years. The updates improved the situation without fully resolving the underlying hardware limitation. The 2016 model year brought a hardware revision that addressed the processor speed limitation. The 2014 and early 2015 Mazda 3 units on the used market today carry this hardware limitation that no software update can overcome. If you are finding this information valuable before making a used Mazda purchase, make sure you subscribe now and turn on notifications. The next year on this list carries a problem that is significantly more expensive than a frustrating infotainment system. It involves the engine, and it appeared without warning on vehicles that showed no prior symptoms. Number 13. The 2011 Mazda CX-7. The Mazda CX-7 was sold in the North American market from 2006 through 2012. The 2011 model year represents the final full year of production before the model was discontinued. It is also the year that turbocharger failure rates on the MZR 2.3-liter turbocharged engine peaked in documented owner experience reports. The MZR 2.3 turbo was a capable engine when maintained on a strict oil change schedule. The turbocharger on this engine is fed by engine oil pressure for lubrication and cooling of the shaft bearings. Oil that is degraded past its service interval cannot maintain adequate lubrication of the turbocharger shaft at the operating temperatures the turbo reaches during normal use. The 2.3 MZR turbo runs at shaft temperatures that require fresh, correctly viscous oil to prevent bearing wear. Degraded oil at the turbocharger shaft bearing produces accelerated wear that becomes catastrophic bearing failure over time. The failure typically presents as a sudden increase in exhaust smoke, a metallic noise from the turbocharger, and rapidly declining boost pressure. Turbocharger replacement on a CX-7 2.3 runs between $1,400 and $2,800 depending on whether an OEM or aftermarket unit is installed. The problem is not a design flaw in the turbocharger itself. The problem is that this engine requires oil changes at 5,000-mile intervals maximum, and that many CX-7 owners followed the generic 7,500-mile interval that was standard advice at the time. A 2011 CX-7 with documented oil change history at 5,000-mile intervals is a very different purchase proposition from one with unknown or extended service intervals. Without documented service history, the 2011 CX-7 2.3 Turbo is a significant financial risk. The next year on this list involves a different problem on a much more popular model that affected thousands of owners and generated one of the largest Mazda owner forum threads in the community's history. Number 12. The 2015 Mazda 6. The 2015 Mazda 6 with the Skyactiv drive 6-speed automatic transmission produced a specific complaint in owner forums that accumulated thousands of discussion posts within the first year of the model's sale. The complaint was a shudder felt through the drivetrain at low speeds during light throttle application, specifically during the torque converter lockup transition that occurs between 15 and 35 miles per hour. The shudder was inconsistent enough that some owners did not notice it, and some noticed it on every low-speed maneuver. Mazda issued a technical service bulletin addressing this condition. The bulletin specified a transmission fluid replacement, using a specific Mazda-approved fluid formulation as the primary intervention. In many cases, the fluid replacement resolved the shudder condition completely. In cases where the condition had been present for an extended period, the shudder pattern had become embedded in the transmission control module's learned shift adaptation. Asking the seller for documentation of the TSB fluid service is the correct pre-purchase step on this specific model year. A 2015 Mazda 6 that received the bulletin service is a strong used car purchase, one that may present the shudder condition from day one of ownership. The shudder is fixable. Knowing to check for it before purchase rather than discovering it after purchase is the difference between a negotiating point and an unexpected expense. The next year on this list involves a problem that is not fixable through a fluid service or a software update. Number 11. The 2006 Mazda 3. The first generation Mazda 3 was introduced for the 2004 model year. The 2006 model year represents a specific rust vulnerability that affects the rear suspension subframe on vehicles that spent any significant portion of their lives in road salt environments. The rear subframe on the 2006 Mazda 3 was produced with a coating specification that was adequate for moderate climate use. In northern states, Canadian provinces, and any market where road salt is applied heavily during winter months, the coating degraded faster than Mazda's durability testing had predicted. Rear subframe rust on the 2006 Mazda 3 progresses from surface oxidation to structural compromise at a rate that concerned enough owners for Mazda to issue an extended warranty coverage provision in certain markets. A structurally compromised rear subframe is not a repair item, it is a replacement item. The pre-purchase inspection for a 2006 Mazda 3 must include a professional undercarriage inspection specifically assessing rear subframe condition. A subframe showing surface rust only on a vehicle from a mild climate is an acceptable finding. A subframe showing pitting, scaling, or structural compromise on any vehicle regardless of claimed history is a disqualifying finding. Do not purchase without the inspection. The next entry shifts from rust problems to a technology problem that affected a much more expensive Mazda model and that cost owners significantly more than a subframe replacement. Number 10. The 2009 Mazda RX-8. The Mazda RX-8 used a rotary engine throughout its production run. The rotary engine is a fundamentally different power plant from the piston engines in every other Mazda model. It produces power through the rotation of a triangular rotor rather than through reciprocating pistons. This fundamental difference creates a specific vulnerability that the 2009 model year RX-8 presented at a higher rate than earlier production years. Engine flooding. The rotary engine in the RX-8 requires reaching full operating temperature to burn off the oil that is injected into the combustion chamber for rotor tip lubrication. Short trips that end before the engine reaches full operating temperature leave unburned oil accumulating in the combustion chamber. Accumulated unburned oil produces a flooding condition that prevents the engine from starting after it is cooled. The 2009 RX-8 had a flooding rate that generated a specific warning in the owner's manual and a dedicated technical service bulletin addressing the owner communication that needed to accompany every vehicle sale. An RX-8 that has been used primarily for short urban trips is an RX-8 that has been flooding regularly. An engine that has been flooding regularly has been experiencing abnormal combustion conditions during those cold start attempts after flooding events. Compression testing of both rotor chambers is the mandatory pre-purchase step on any RX-8 regardless of model year. A 2009 RX-8 with healthy compression figures and documented highway use history is a very different vehicle from one with low compression and urban-only trip history. Without compression testing, the RX-8 purchase is a significant financial gamble regardless of how good the vehicle looks on the surface. The next entry is a model year that looked like a significant upgrade over its predecessor and that contained a component failure that surfaced specifically during the second and third year of ownership. Number 9. The 2017 Mazda CX-5. The 2017 Mazda CX-5 introduced the Skyactiv G 2.5-liter naturally aspirated engine as the base powertrain. The 2.5-liter was a genuine improvement over the 2.0 it replaced in terms of power output and low RPM torque. It also introduced a specific oil consumption pattern that surfaced in owner reports during the second year of ownership on early production units. The consumption rate on affected vehicles ran between 1 quart per 1,000 miles and 1 quart per 2,000 miles. Neither rate is catastrophic. Both rates are significantly above what owners of the previous 2.0 engine had experienced. Mazda's response was a piston ring revision introduced during the 2018 production year that addressed the consumption pattern on new vehicles. 2017 CX-5 units already in the field did not receive a mechanical correction. The 2017 CX-5 on the used market today should be evaluated with specific attention to oil level between changes. Request documentation of oil consumption monitoring from any seller. A 2017 CX-5 that shows stable oil levels between changes is a fine purchase. One that shows consumption greater than 1 quart per 2,000 miles warrants either a negotiated price reduction to cover monitoring costs or a different model year selection. If this information is protecting you from a costly used car mistake, smash that like button right now. Share this video with anyone you know who is shopping for a used Mazda right now. The next entry is a problem that affected a model most buyers would never associate with reliability concerns, and that emerged from a component most buyers never think to check. Number 8. The 2010 Mazda 5. The Mazda 5 with the 5-speed automatic transmission produced in the 2010 model year has a specific used market vulnerability that has nothing to do with the vehicle's mechanical design. The 5-speed automatic in the 2010 Mazda 5 is a durable transmission when maintained correctly. The maintenance requirement that is almost universally neglected on used examples of this vehicle is the transmission fluid service interval. Mazda specifies transmission fluid replacement at 30,000-mile intervals on this transmission. The majority of used 2010 Mazda 5 examples on the market today have never received a transmission fluid service. Never, not once. At 100,000 miles, the transmission fluid in an unserviced example has been subjected to approximately 3.5 times its designed service life. Fluid that has been cycled through heat and friction for 300,000 miles worth of service intervals rather than 30,000 produces a transmission that shifts hesitantly, develops shuddering during torque converter lockup, and shows elevated wear on clutch pack friction surfaces. The transmission itself is not worn out. The fluid has destroyed the friction material characteristics that make the clutch packs engage smoothly. The correct approach is requesting documentation of transmission service history before purchase. A 2010 Mazda 5 with documented 30,000-mile transmission services is a strong purchase. One with no documented service history requires a price negotiation that accounts for the fluid service risk. The next entry involves a problem that affected one of Mazda's most acclaimed models during a specific production period and that emerged from the steering system. Number 7. The 2014 CX-5. The 2014 Mazda CX-5 carried over the electric power steering system from the first generation of this model with a software calibration that produced a specific complaint during low-speed parking maneuvers. The steering effort at parking speeds felt inconsistent to a significant number of owners. The wheel required noticeably more effort through certain steering angles than through adjacent angles. The inconsistency was subtle enough that some owners never noticed it, and significant enough that others described it as the steering feeling like it was catching on something. Mazda issued a software update for the electric power steering control module that improved the calibration in the affected range. The software update was applied during dealer service visits when owners reported the symptom. Vehicles that were serviced regularly at Mazda. Dealers during the 2014 and 2015 period typically receive the update as part of a general software package applied during service. On the used market today, the steering inconsistency that was present from factory on affected units may still be present if the software update was never applied. The check is simple. During a test drive of a 2014 CX-5, perform slow-speed parking maneuvers through the full steering lock in both directions. Consistent effort throughout the lock range indicates the update has been applied, or the vehicle is an unaffected unit. The next year on this list involves a problem with the audio system that affected a specific trim level and that cost owners significantly more than a software update to correct. Number 6. The 2016 Mazda 6. The 2016 Mazda 6 with the Bose Premium Audio System option experienced a specific amplifier failure pattern that surfaced in owner reports within 2 to 3 years of purchase. The Bose amplifier unit in this specific application was mounted in a location that exposed it to temperature cycling from the HVAC system airflow. Repeated thermal cycling of the amplifier caused solder joint fatigue on the internal circuit board of the amplifier unit over time. Fatigued solder joints produce intermittent audio dropouts that progress to complete amplifier failure as the joint integrity deteriorates. The failure presents as audio that cuts out intermittently during the first stage and as complete silence from all speakers in the final stage. Bose amplifier replacement on the 2016 Mazda 6 runs between $800 and $1,400 depending on the source of the replacement unit. A system that performs cleanly through 20 minutes of operation at moderate volume is either an unaffected unit or a unit where the failure has not yet progressed to the intermittent stage. Document the audio performance during the test drive. Use any dropout occurrence as a negotiating point. The next entry is the one that most used Mazda buyers never consider checking because it involves a system that is not part of the standard pre-purchase inspection checklist. Number 5. The 2012 Mazda 3. The 2012 Mazda 3 with the manual transmission produced a clutch wear pattern that emerged in owner reports at mileages significantly below the expected service life. The SkyActiv MT 6-speed manual transmission introduced in this year was paired with a clutch assembly that Mazda's engineering team had calibrated for a specific engagement feel. The engagement feel that Mazda calibrated for was lighter and more progressive than the previous generation clutch. Lighter clutch engagement is a positive characteristic for daily driving comfort. The previous generation Mazda 3 clutch commonly lasted 100 to 120,000 miles in similar use conditions. The 2012 clutch assembly wore at a rate approximately 40% faster under comparable conditions. Mazda revised the clutch specification for the 2013 model year. 2012 manual transmission. Mazda 3 examples on the used market today should be specifically assessed for clutch condition. Clutch replacement on a Mazda 3 runs between $800 and $1,400 at an independent shop. A 2012 Mazda 3 with a documented clutch replacement at 60 to 70,000 miles is a vehicle where the known issue has already been addressed. One approaching that mileage without documented clutch service is a vehicle where a significant repair is likely approaching. Factor the clutch condition into your offer price accordingly. The next entry is a specific year that most Mazda buyers consider a safe choice because of its age and proven record, and that contains a hidden problem most buyers discover only after purchase. Number 4. The 2008 Mazda CX-9. The Mazda CX-9, produced in 2008, used the MZR 3.7-liter naturally aspirated V6 engine. This engine was generally reliable across the CX-9 production run. The 2008 model year had a specific timing chain tensioner design that produced premature wear on units that experienced extended oil change intervals or that were operated in high-temperature environments with degraded oil. The timing chain tensioner maintains correct tension on the timing chain that synchronizes the engine's valve timing with the crankshaft. A worn tensioner allows the timing chain to develop slack. Timing chain slack produces a characteristic cold start rattle that lasts for the first few seconds after startup before oil pressure fills the tensioner and quiets the chain. This cold start rattle is the early warning sign. Owners who ignored the cold start rattle on 2008 CX-9 examples allowed the slack condition to progress to timing chain wear that eventually required a complete timing system replacement. Timing chain and tensioner replacement on the CX-9 3.7 runs between $2,200 and $3,800. The pre-purchase assessment for this condition is simple and takes 30 seconds. Stand outside the vehicle during a cold start. Listen for any rattling noise from the engine in the first 3 to 5 seconds before it quiets. A clean, quiet cold start indicates a healthy tensioner. Any rattle that is present in the first seconds and then quiets indicates a tensioner that is worn and requiring oil pressure to maintain adequate chain tension. A rattle that persists beyond 5 seconds indicates a tensioner that has progressed beyond the early warning stage. The 3-second cold start assessment eliminates a potential $3,000 surprise before you sign anything. The next entry covers the most expensive failure pattern on this entire list. Number 3. The 2013 Mazda CX-5. The 2013 Mazda CX-5 was the first model year of a completely new platform, new chassis architecture, new SkyActiv G 2.0 engine, new SkyActiv Drive 6-speed automatic transmission, new infotainment system, all of it new in a single model year introduction. First-year platform introductions carry first-year issues. The 2013 CX-5 produced documented owner concerns in 3 separate system categories during its first year of ownership experience. The SkyActiv Drive transmission in early production units showed a hunting behavior during gentle acceleration at highway speeds, as the transmission management system attempted to execute fuel-saving gear selection patterns that the initial software calibration had not fully refined. Mazda addressed this through software updates during the 2013 and 2014 model years. Mazda addressed the road noise concern through bushing specification changes introduced for the 2015 model year. The 2015 CX-5 is a meaningfully better vehicle across all three concern categories than the 2013. On the used market, the 2013 and 2015 are frequently priced similarly. The price similarity between the two makes the 2015 the objectively better used market choice in most circumstances. Pay the same amount for a vehicle where Mazda's engineers have already solved the problems the first-year owners identified and documented. The next entry is one that surprises most Mazda enthusiasts because the year involved is one that carries strong reputation in the owner community. Number 2, the 2020 Mazda 3. The 2020 Mazda 3 introduced the Skyactiv G 2.5-liter turbocharged engine to the 3 nameplate for the first time. 227 horsepower, 63% more power than the naturally aspirated 2.5 in the same platform. Available with all-wheel drive. The performance and capability increase was significant. The first-year turbocharged implementation in the Mazda 3 also introduced a specific oil consumption pattern on early production units that mirrored the 2.5 naturally aspirated consumption concern from the 2017 CX-5 discussed earlier. The consumption rate on affected 2020 Mazda 3 turbo units showed between 1 quart per 1,500 miles and 1 quart per 2,500 miles depending on driving conditions. Turbo engines consume oil at measurably higher rates under hard use than naturally aspirated engines of similar displacement due to the additional bearing lubrication requirements of the turbocharger. On the 2020 Mazda 3 Turbo, consumption rates above 1 quart per 2,000 miles under moderate use indicated a piston ring sealing concern specific to early production units. Mazda's production line quality adjustments during the 2021 model year addressed the ring sealing specification. 2021 Mazda 3 Turbo examples show significantly lower oil consumption rates than 2020 examples in documented owner comparison data. On the used market, the price difference between a 2020 and a 2021 Mazda 3 Turbo is frequently under $1,000. The $1,000 price premium for the corrected production year is almost certainly recovered in oil consumption costs and maintenance peace of mind within the first ownership year. Number 1, the years to buy and the single most valuable rule for buying any Mazda. Every year named on this list exists on a spectrum. The bad years are bad for specific documented reasons that are manageable with the right information. The best years are the ones that follow a known problem. Year after Mazda's engineering team has addressed the issue, the pattern is consistent enough across Mazda's modern history to state as a rule: 2016 CX-5 over 2013 CX-5, 2018 Mazda 3 over 2014 Mazda 3, 2018 CX-5 over 2017 CX-5, 2021 Mazda 3 Turbo over 2020 Mazda 3 Turbo. The second or third year of any Mazda platform delivers the engineering benefits that the first year promised without the first year costs that early adopters absorbed. Used market pricing rarely reflects this quality difference fully. A 2016 CX-5 and a 2013 CX-5 are frequently priced similarly. The 2016 is a materially better vehicle at every system level. The dealer selling you the 2013 is not going to volunteer that information. That is not deception. That is the natural information asymmetry of the used car market. Your job as a buyer is to close that information gap before the transaction rather than after. The information in this video is the beginning of closing it. The specific pre-purchase inspection steps for each problematic year are how you apply it to any specific vehicle you evaluate. Cold start rattle assessment, oil consumption documentation request, transmission service history verification, software update confirmation, undercarriage inspection for structural rust. These 5 checks applied to any Mazda on the used market give you more information about the actual condition of that specific vehicle than the dealer's entire sales presentation. The years to avoid are avoidable. The years to target are accessible at fair prices. The difference between a Mazda that costs you money and a Mazda that saves you money is almost always the model year decision made before the purchase. Make it with the right information. Hey, thanks for watching. If this video just protected you from buying the wrong Mazda year, let us know in the comments which model you are shopping for and which year you were considering before watching this. Want to see the 13 hidden Mazda features that most owners never discover across the entire life of their vehicle? Click on the video on the left. And if you do not want to miss more model-specific buying guides that expose what dealers never volunteer, hit that subscribe button right now.